Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Dexter Resurrection Season 1, Episode 5, which is called Murder Horny. Wow. Wow. You know, the thing that I love about this show is that even though it's like about this really dark subject matter and, you have serial killers, you have, killing people almost every episode, somehow this show just completely raises the mood. Like with anyone in any situation, like this show, like when you watch it, it's like the world disappears and you're watching Dexter and it's like, Okay, that sounded wrong. Okay, do not listen to that while you're doing something else because you will think I was doing something inappropriate, which I wasn't this time. Okay, so anyways, I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. I don't think it's as good as the last 2 or 3 episodes, but I still would give it probably still an A+, because I just love the show so much that even though, because I feel like this is just an episode you have to sit with, because you have expectations for these characters, and then, things kind of get pulled out from under the rug this episode, and it's funny, because today, I'm not going to talk about it at all, because it's still an ongoing process, but I decided today that I was going to do something to clear up space on my phone. And it involved doing something that made me look into a person, or made me look at a person and watch them doing things. And it made me realize, oh shit, this person is not who I thought they were. And it was the exact same situation that Dexter got into this episode, which is why it was so weird and it was so bizarre, because I made the exact same decision that he did, which is like, okay, I got to get rid of this person. And so it was like a weird like TV show mirroring reality type of thing. And so that's what happened to me today. And I was in kind of a shitty mood, because now I'm back at square one a little bit with a certain thing, and well, not really. It just was a shift. It was a shift, and just like in this episode, and it was like, okay, here's what's gonna happen, and then boom, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to. But the point is that it was really weird watching this episode after what happened today, and after what I went through on the inside. And so that's what kind of made the episode even better for me. I would say that this episode, though, without getting into spoilers, I think one of my biggest issues with this episode is that it felt very fragmented. That was probably one of my biggest issues. It felt like very similar to the Fantastic Four, which that was a movie that I was not excited for. And I watched it and I loved it. I thought it was probably one of the best Marvel movies I've ever seen. But it felt like they cut out 30 minutes of the movie. And it felt like it was way too short and fragmented and choppy. And this episode felt a little bit choppy for some reason. It felt like, okay, like obviously every episode can't be like last week's episode. Last week's episode, it was like a centerpiece. It was like a centerpiece that like, okay, that explains how this season got made. Because like if you just pitch that episode all by itself, I mean, people are saying that's one of the best Dexter episodes of all time. And so, and that's from people who've seen the whole series. But this episode, it was destined that they would slow things down a little bit, but they kind of didn't. They had some major things happen, but I don't know, it felt kind of choppy. It felt like it was kind of jumping around a little bit to the point of where I was like, okay, like, this is kind of, like, there was kind of like a basic structure, which, again, a lot of TV shows and movies nowadays, they don't even think about plot structure. They don't even think about, like, okay, how do I place these pieces, together to make, like, a good episode or a movie. They do a terrible job with plot structure. In particular, Better Call Saul. There's this thing that they do nowadays where, and this is a lot of the times in TV, they'll have like 4 or 5 episodes that are really, really mediocre. And then they'll have one episode that's like a 10 out of 10, and they'll say, well, that's a justification for having those mediocre episodes, is that, oh, now there's a 10 out of 10 episode, and so that justifies you guys not enjoying the last 5. And that's the thing that I like about this show, too, is that even if I have my couple of little nitpicks with it, every single episode is just a hit. It's a hit, and it's a strong hit. It's like ugh. It's like that part in School of Rock where Jack Black, he takes the little guitar pick and he goes, ugh. Like, that's what every week is like on this show. It's so exciting. Like, I feel like this is the feeling that I used to get watching TV shows, being so excited every week for each and every episode. And then the discussions you have in between, it's just such a great experience. I'm so thankful for it, regardless of if I have my problems with an episode. So, I guess we should get into the episode finally. But I love the episode, but still, it's going to be kind of tough to talk about it too, because it's very all over the place in terms of, it's very choppy. Let's just go through each character, I guess, and their arc. Let's talk about Harrison. So right off the bat, I did not know that Harrison is supposed to be 16 years old. And you guys might not realize that either. I thought he was like in his 20s. He probably is in real life. So it's unfortunate, because that means they're probably not going to let him hook up with the girl that that's his love interest. And so I think that's really, really weird. I don't know why he's so young. He doesn't look 16. He looks like 24, 23, 22. And that's not a bad thing. He looks great. He looks awesome. Like, he looks like a fantastic young leading man. But what I loved about this episode was that it was bookended with conversations with Dexter and his father. You have the beginning of the episode, well, basically, you have the beginning of the episode where Dexter and Harrison finally talk at his apartment, at his basement apartment, and, Harrison doesn't want anything to do with him. In fact, Harrison, he's so sick, he feels so guilty, and, he's trying to convince Dexter that, like, hey, I'm not like you, man. I'm nothing like you. You made me kill that guy. If you had... And this is my Harrison impression, by the way. If you hadn't trained me, I never would have killed that guy. And Dexter's like, God, what's this kid's deal? and then he leaves. And he also gives Dexter the watch that he took from the date rapist. And obviously that comes into play later on in the episode. So then Harrison has to deal with Claude. And apparently her name is Claudette. I don't know why the guy called her Claude. See, that's what I hate about, like, modern movies and TV shows, where, like, every single like name that people have has to be shortened to like 3 letters. You know, like, oh, well, I'm Marco, but you're going to call me Mar or Mark. And it's like, how does that make any sense? So how do you call a woman named Claudette? How do you call her Claude? And Claudette is honestly just as bad of a name, if not worse, because at least Claude is kind of cute. But she talks with Harrison, and it's really hilarious what he does. He goes to the precinct to talk to her in her office. I mean, he's just asking to get caught. He's just asking for it at this point, which I don't know why. He has no subtlety at all. He's so like, and he still appears like, oh no, she knows. Like, he always appears so panicked and so just crazily, like, just shaky, anxious. And he comes up with the excuse that he called her last episode because he wanted the phone number of the date rape victim. Which, you know, he knew that she probably wouldn't give that to him because she's a bitch. And, you know, it's just really funny because, you know, she knows that she probably thinks that he did it, and she knows that he's just bullshitting, and so she's like, you know, oh, well, why couldn't you get that information from your boss? Like, she talks in a very robotic way, and not in a bad way, but just her character, you know, is very cold and robotic. Like, honestly, she is supposedly like a good guy, you know, because she catches bad guys. She is a police detective, but she is so cold and unlikable. And she's so, like, inhuman. And I think that's kind of like a parallel to Dexter, because Dexter, this whole season, he's been saving someone like almost every single episode. And he did it again this episode. He's like a superhero. And then Claudette, she doesn't save anyone. She's just like, she just goes and like to investigate, and she's like, okay, I'm going to investigate now. I am going to do everything I can to ruin this 16-year-old boy's life. Like, that's what she does. Like, when she told his boss that he was sleeping in vacant rooms. Like, she's a biatch. She's a total narc. She's a total biatch. But I still love her character because she's a good villain for Dexter to kill, hopefully. Now, she does not give him the phone number, and he leaves. And I think that's... Oh, yeah, also, we see him interacting with the friend zone girl in the hotel later on. And I will talk about that later. So now let's talk about Charlie. We see Charlie once again. I would say probably Charlie is my least favorite character on the show, simply because she's kind of boring. She doesn't really have much to her at this point, except for, you know, she has a sick mother, and she, you know, has to do this job for Prater, and she has to, you know, be perfect and all this stuff, but she doesn't really have much to her. Like, I would like to see her, like, interact with other characters more. You know, like, even in this little interaction with her mom, I didn't really get anything from that. I didn't really get anything from her that felt like, oh, like, she's an interesting character, too. Not really, yet. I have a feeling that'll change very quickly, though. But anyways, also, Leon... he did an interview on TV, and of course that was really entertaining. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the episode, because I liked getting to know more about him. And, you know, he is so, like, happy. He's relishing in the fact that he knows serial killers, and he has these dinners, and he's so proud, and he's like, oh, you wouldn't believe who I have at my dinner table. Like, he does, like, a mustache man superhero villain laugh. Like, he basically, he goes way over the top, And it's very fun to watch, knowing, more about him. So now let's talk about Dexter and his whole plot, which was the plot that mirrored my plot in real life. Okay? Dexter, he's lonely. He's very lonely. And another parallel that was in this episode, which, I bet a lot of people... This is a problem with the audience, I think. Not like the audience is bad or anything, but a lot of the times people in the audience, they don't think that choices are made on purpose. They don't think that there could be more to the story than what there is on screen. And so when I say that there's things like parallels in these episodes and in the show, a lot of people could just say, oh, well, that's just a coincidence. And, they say that about everything. Every single little thing nowadays, everything is always a coincidence. Even when it comes to, like, real-world stuff, which is pretty scary, And, well, at the beginning of the episode, Dexter is in the car, and he is doing Uber for this couple, and he's really lonely and really sad that, like, he doesn't have any friends, he doesn't have a girlfriend. Well, later on in the episode, you see him and Jessica Jones, a.k.a. Lady Vengeance, a.k.a. Mia, and, she wants to be like a couple with him, and she wants to get into an Uber car with him so that they can kill the driver. And so that's kind of like a parallel right there. At the beginning of the episode, Dexter's the driver, and then there's a couple in the back. Later on, Jessica Jones wants to, go in an Uber with Dexter, and she wants to be a couple with him. A murder couple. Boom. So, I'm not saying this episode was bad. I think it's really, really good. I loved it. It's just that there is a major turn that happens this episode, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Dexter sees a poster for Swan Lake. Swan Lake is playing in New York. And he invites Lady Vengeance to go see that with him. And it's really hilarious because this was another moment where, he had the awkward, like, oh, I do not know how to do this human thing. I don't know how to fit in. And she was like, ew, no way. And he did not expect her to have that reaction. So he's like, okay. Then she's like, operas are for, or whatever, like, Swan Lake is for boring people who fall asleep for 2 hours or something like that. And she's like, what else would you like to do? And what do you know? We got to see bowling in this episode, which I love bowling. I love it when movies and TV shows have bowling in it too, because it's a lot of fun. And it's really funny to watch Dexter go bowling. Apparently he did that in the old show, maybe? I don't know. And he goes bowling with Lady Vengeance. He's kind of starting to get to know her more a little bit. And then later on, they go to this, I think it's a bar together so that they can try that out. And this is where things get kind of interesting. Because number one, they're tasting the wine, and Dexter says that this one drink reminds him a lot of a rainy night in Florida, which I don't know if that would be a good thing. When you're tasting wine, and she says, they say that when people, like, taste drinks that it tells a lot about where they come from. So, she kind of hinted that, like, oh, are you saying you come from Florida? And he kind of started to reveal a little bit because he wanted to tell her that he was the Bay Harbor Butcher, but he didn't know, maybe he shouldn't. And then also number two, she wants to do a double date, or not a double date, sorry. She wants to do a team-up kill on some random guy. And to be honest, I am so glad that things turned out the way they did, because I think it would have been so kind of like boring and predictable for like them to do that and for her to have a code like that. And so what happens is she reveals she does not, she likes killing for the fun of it. You know, she is not even like, she does not have a code at all. That's just like some BS that the media made up. And that's the other thing that I didn't like about the episode. There's this little line about how, like, well, people think that women can't just enjoy killing for the fun of it. And I get what she's saying. You know, like, I thought it was, like, a really funny, like, ha ha ha, like, it was so funny, like, watching Dexter, because he probably had he had a pencil that turned into a noodle at that point, you know, if you get what I'm saying. Because he knew at that point, I'm going to have to kill this bitch immediately. Or I want to. Like, he got so mad. Like, you know, if she was smart, she could tell. Like, he was so upset. You know, he looked like someone shit in his wine glass. And, you know, immediately, it's like, okay, like, you could see the cogs, you know, adjusting in his head, like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna kill her? Because he just killed the tattoo guy. So now he can't kill her because it would be too suspicious. And then he ends up kind of just flaking out on her, and then she gets disappointed, and she picks up a guy anyway to kill him. And so he decides, I'm gonna have to do something. Because he's got to save this other guy. I mean, he's saving someone every episode. It's so cool. I guess he didn't do that in the old show, which is kind of sad because, honestly, it's a really, really interesting kind of twist on things that now that he's doing that every single episode, because it makes things a lot more complicated in terms of morals, in terms of, like, asking the question of, like, is he really that much of a monster if he's saving a life every single episode? I mean, it's like even, you know, he kills someone and then he saves a life. He kills someone, he saves a life. And it's like, how can you be upset with that, honestly? Well, she takes this guy home, and was I the only one who thought that the guy she took home kind of looked like Harrison a little bit? That's what was kind of weird to me. But she takes him home, and he broke into her apartment, and then he ended up calling the cops on her right after she knocked out this guy, which, you know, this is New York, so of course they're going to get fully naked with the curtains wide open, Rear Window style. And so he calls the cops, and this is funny too because he does like a New Yorker accent, and that was really funny. That's always fun in like movies when like people do like a really bad accent on purpose, and it's really hilarious. And so she's gonna torture him and kill him, and it just, actually, I gotta say, this is my favorite role that I've ever seen Kristen Ritter play in, because she does a really good job at playing a villain. You know, she comes off as just, like, really, really interesting now that, like, I see her as a villain, because that's been my problem with her, is that, you know, she has this kind of dark vibe about her. Like, she would be really good at playing a villain. Kind of like me, sometimes, you know, like, which is why I play a villain, twice. Yeah, twice, 2 or 3 times, I guess you could say, I played a villain. And yet, in other movies and TV shows, it's always like, oh, well, she's this really, really sweet and good character. You know, like in Breaking Bad, well, she was kind of gray in that show. She was definitely a bad influence on Jesse, but she wasn't bad. She wasn't horrible, but she kind of was. But a lot of people don't see it that way. They think she's like an angel or something. And then, you know, Jessica Jones, she's a rape victim, and so she's, you know, she's always Her character is basically like, like a complete and utter, like, reaction to that event. And so she comes off as very, very, very rough around the edges. But at the same time, she's a hero. She's a superhero. And then she was also in this true crime show that I watched in 2023, which that was just a mini series or a limited series, and it wasn't very good. But she played like the friend in that, like the friend, like some really nice friend. And it's like, give this woman a villainous role. Let her play a villain, for God's sakes, And so it was really nice to see, like, even though I think the thing that will make or break this episode with people is that, did you want her to be a villain? Like, did you want her to be a killer for the sake of killing? Or are you happy that, like, oh, it's revealed that, of course, she's dirty like everyone else? Because honestly, it was kind of interesting to step back and say, like, oh, well, what should Dexter do? Because she has a code too. She kills predators. Like, that's kind of an interesting moral question. But you can't ask that question anymore because she revealed the opposite. And another thing too, a lot of people have talked about this on Twitter, is that last week, there is a possibility that she was going to kill Dexter. Why? Because if she doesn't have a motive, if she just wants to kill any guy, she admitted she takes all the guys that she wants to kill back to her apartment. Just because she's, baiting him to go in the shower, that doesn't mean that she could just couldn't knock him out and then kill him and torture him. And so a lot of people are saying, last week, he also escaped getting killed by her because she was probably going to kill him. And I think that's a really, really interesting twist. And so that's what I loved about this episode, was that feeling of like, oh shit, everything I thought about this character was wrong. And I thought that was so cool, and it was so refreshing, and it was so nice because she's still a really likable character, even though she's really evil. And I wish that they would have more characters like that nowadays. It seems like with female characters, like, they have to be all good, or else, they're bad. They're bad characters. But the truth is that I prefer it when female characters have flaws too. I don't like characters who are just all perfect and they don't have any, like, I love it when there's a character who has flaws and who has humanity. And so the fact that she's evil, it actually makes me like her even more. It makes me like her character even more. Like, she's probably, I would say, like, my second or third favorite character on the show now, that she's been revealed to be purely evil and not even like a vigilante like Dexter. So he plants the watch that Harrison gave him in her apartment. So now everyone thinks that she killed the date rapist. And, I already said that might happen, and it has already come true because, I'm just that good. No, it's because I saw someone else predict that, and I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And what ends up happening is that Charlie sees her in prison, and she says she's not going to talk, she's not going to do anything stupid, and then Charlie says, we're going to make sure that you are very comfortable here, and you don't have to stay here very long. And so my prediction, I don't know, because they said that they have like a 3-season plan. Maybe, and this might just be the stupidest prediction I made so far, and I'm not saying my predictions are true. I'm just saying that these are predictions that I'm making. and you can either take it or you can throw it in the trash. But what if she's going to be in prison until season 3, and then in season 3 she gets out, and then she comes for Dexter or something? I don't know. Well, that's stupid. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not the writer. I don't want to be, because the writers are already doing a great job. They don't need my help, unlike Better Call Saul and Goosebumps, you know. And I know I talk about Better Call Saul a lot. It's actually because today on Twitter, someone made a post about the show, and I told them the truth about what happened to the show. And all these people, guys, you are not going to believe this. There is a Better Call Saul revisionist history going on right now. All these people jumped on me and they said, I don't know what show you were watching. They made Kim the villain in season 6. They made Kim the side character and the villain. The show was always about Jimmy and Saul. And that's another thing. I said, you know, Saul Goodman, they promised us multiple seasons, which they did. Back in season 2, when season 2 came out, I have a great memory. I remember things in vivid detail. I remembered an article where they promised multiple seasons where we would see Breaking Bad through the perspective of Saul. That never happened. It was only for like one episode that we saw him as Saul in Breaking Bad, and it was basically just filling in scenes from Breaking Bad that were already shown to us. It was a huge piece of shit. But there were people trying to gaslight me. And gaslight, that's my least favorite word. But it's true in this point. They were trying to say that the entire show was about Saul. It's unbelievable. There is like a revisionist history going on about Better Call Saul. But there were a couple of smart people, and they gave my comment a thumbs up. And so, you know, at least there are a couple of smart people who will not deny reality. And so anyways, this is what Harrison sees with his not girlfriend, with his friend-zoned friend in the hotel. And it leads to a heartwarming scene between him and his father, which, again, I love seeing, like, a really good, like, father-son relationship in a TV show or movie nowadays, because we never get to see that. Hollywood doesn't want us to see that type of thing. They don't want children, particularly young boys, they don't want them to have positive male role models and father figures. Every time you see a kids movie, it's always about a single mom, and she's such a great mom, and the kid, you know, he looks up to her like she's the greatest. There's never a story about a father and his son, except for this show, basically. And so, my favorite scene of the whole episode was that scene between him and his son. The only thing I didn't like about it was that they kind of spoiled more of the old show. And they showed all these flashbacks. I don't know why they keep on showing all these flashbacks, because it irritates me, because I want to go back and rewatch the old show. And so every time they do that, I have to close my eyes. So it's kind of annoying. But they basically rekindle their relationship. And Dexter actually, he expresses like empathy and remorse. He's like, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry I tried to make you like me. Like, it was such a great scene. And I really hope that people who didn't like the last revival, I hope that they feel satisfied of where this relationship has been taken, because it feels like, based on what I've been told about that revival, how they tried to make Dexter into some kind of monster, and it didn't feel like the old show. I really hope that this kind of makes up for it, because that's what I took from it, was like, this is what the fans want. This is the perfect, the perfect payoff. It is the perfect payoff. The perfect payoff and the perfect Dexter parent. So anyways, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. Oh yeah. And this is what I mean by how the episode kind of felt a little fragmented. There was this little side story where Blessings, I think his mother, I can't remember, I'm sorry, she fell on the stairs, and apparently she has some kind of cancer, and she doesn't want to get chemotherapy or something because she doesn't like getting nauseous. And so she has these episodes, and she had one where she fell on the stairs, and Dexter helped her inside. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's what I mean, how this episode kind of felt fragmented, was we got that moment, and then we got the moment with Charlie and her mother. That moment kind of felt like nothing to me. And so, but overall, I would give this episode an A+. You know, I really, really loved this episode. I really loved how, the structure of the episode, most of all. I love the plot structure because it feels nice to see, like, people who make movies and TV shows to take this kind of, like, real serious consideration into, you know, how you structure a story. Because it feels so much more perfect and so much more satisfying. Like, at the beginning of the episode, he's in a horrible place with his son, and that's what kind of pushes him towards Mia, Lady Vengeance. And then at the end, obviously, he is done with her, and he is back towards his son, and they have rekindled things. And yeah, I can't wait to see what happens. I would also like to say, I don't know if anyone noticed this, and I don't know if this guy has been on the show before. I do not remember him from earlier episodes. When they were investigating Lady Vengeance's apartment, there was a third detective there. And this detective, he looked like Columbo. He sounded kind of like Columbo. He had Columbo's, like, wardrobe with the trench coat and everything. And so I think that was, like, a fun little Easter egg, was, like, this detective who looks like Columbo, who was investigating with Claudette. So anyways, overall, A+ episode. Love the show. I can't wait for next week. And if you guys are worried about the situation, do not be worried at all. It was a great thing that happened today, of all days, too, because the fact that it lined up so perfectly with this episode of TV, it just made me feel like, yeah, like I'm on the right path. I'm not gonna waste time going down the wrong path like Dexter was thinking that he was going to as well. He was like, maybe I should just, tell her that I'm the Bay Harbor Butcher, and then maybe she'll let me cream pie her another time. That's what he was really thinking about. He was thinking about getting laid, and he was thinking about hooking up and having a girlfriend, having Kristen Ritter as his girlfriend, and when that, disappointment came, he was like, oh. He was just totally like, ugh. And, I felt it. I felt it right there. And I love how his dad is not on the show as much in this episode, but I love the fact that, like, he still comes in, and he comes in at the best moments. Just at the perfect moments where you're like, and it's like, yeah. So anyways, I've already said anyways for the 10th time now. So I'm going to end this fucking video. Please like this video, comment, was this review a piece of shit? Sorry. Not sorry, I don't give a fuck. I just enjoy talking about a TV show that I love. And yeah, I hope you guys love the show too. Because if you don't, tell me why. Because this episode seems like it could be a little divisive for people, in terms of, like, if you really wanted Mia to be like a vigilante, if you wanted her to be, like that, like a hero. And when really she is just a nasty villain. And I think that the big red flag, by the way, was when she didn't want to go see Swan Lake. I think that was the big red flag. And I think that Dexter should have kind of sat back and thought about that. And I think that, I had the same thing where I thought about, I saw a red flag too. I saw a couple. And, that's what always happens with people too, is that, like, and I think, like, there's other and this is the other prediction that I wanted to make, is that it feels like there's someone who knows something more here. Because Leon, he was very, very calm about this situation. Like, I thought they were going to show the news of her getting caught, and he was going to be like, ah! Like Lex Luthor type of thing, having a temper tantrum and throwing the pencils across the room. But instead, he was just kind of like, okay, business as usual. Charlie, you do your job, you little bitch. Like, he didn't even care at all. He didn't even seem worried or anything. And so I think he knows something. In fact, you know what, guys? I'm going to make the most wild prediction here. Probably going to make myself look stupid. And if I do, I don't care. Because I love it when I make myself look stupid, because then other times I can look cool, and you can do both. That's what life is about, looking stupid and looking cool at the same time, which I'm a master of at doing. Is I just wipe the sweat off of my forehead in an awkward manner. I don't know what's going on with me tonight, guys. I'm sorry. But the other prediction I wanted to make, finally, is that maybe, this is probably way off. I don't know. So don't kill me for suggesting this. Okay? What if Leon set up this entire secret society because he wanted to get the Bay Harbor Butcher at his table? What if? And suddenly this is all making sense to me. That's why I was like, what if all these years Leon was trying to get the Bay Harbor Butcher to join his group, to find him, to find New York, so that then he could ask him to help catch the New York Ripper, the guy who was a serial killer in Leon's childhood? What if that is his motive the whole time? And that would make sense for next episode. They showed a little trailer where he takes Dexter in this helicopter ride or plane ride or something. And so I think that is why he is so calm. Because he knows that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, and he wants Dexter to help find and kill this one serial killer. What if that is the case? Boom! And honestly, that's kind of an interesting idea. But at the same time, thinking about it from a writer's perspective, I don't want Leon to be some kind of like a good guy or some kind of vigilante. I want him to get killed too. Like, I want him to be evil too. So that would kind of ruin that, because it's like, oh, well, he basically just did all of this so that he could get the Bay Harbor Butcher to, help catch this other guy. So, but again, anything is possible, as you just saw from this episode. So, please like this. Oh, yeah, I already said all that. And please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest Dexter reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.